صباح الخير لكل مشاهدين الام تي في. اليوم لبنان عم بيلفت نظر كثير من الكتاب، اكيد مش بس اللبنانيين والعرب ولكن الاجانب. في كثير اصدارات اليوم عم نشوفها عن لبنان، عن تاريخ لبنان، عن سياسه لبنان، عن اجتماع عن مجتمع بلبنان، واكيد كمان عن الحاله الاقتصاديه. اليوم بشرفني حضور الصحافي والكاتب الانجليزي تيم لويلن معنا باستديوهات الام تي في. اهلا وسهلا فيك. You are the most welcome.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Tim Llewellyn. Nice meeting you too. بنعرف انه مستر تيم لويلن موجود بلبنان لانه اصدر كتاب اكيد تم توقيعه من يومين بفيرجن، ومن هيك هو موجود اليوم معنا باستديوهات الام تي في. Mr. Llewellyn, you are an English journalist and reporter, born in England, and you have worked in many also newspapers and magazines, such as Sunday Times and Times Business, and you worked at BBC since 1971.
That's right.
Till 1992, and you have covered the Middle East for 10 years. And you have covered also, of course...
I covered the Middle East now for 30 years, if you count the years of, since I left the BBC as a freelance and as a writer. So I'm still doing it in a way.
Yeah, and that's what we
since 74, you could say. It's a long time.
It's a very long time. I think you started with the Lebanese war.
I did. That was, I cut my teeth in Lebanon, as we say.
Yeah.
This is where I began, and this is where I became fascinated by the Middle East. I first came in 74. I became an instant expert, in quotes. Then the Civil War started, properly in 1975, and they sent me back. I came back more and more, and in the end they posted me to Beirut, so this was my first home in the Middle East, and still remains my mental home in the Middle East.
Nice to hear that. We know that also you have covered besides the Lebanese war, of course, the Iran and Iraq wars, and the Israeli and Palestinian conflicts too.
Yeah.
But I wanted to know, this is your first book, and the name is Spirits of the Phoenix, Beirut and the Story of Lebanon. Why, though you have covered a lot of Middle East conflicts, why did you choose to start with a book talking about Lebanon?
Well, I think Lebanon is very important, and I think it's up till now it's been rather ignored in the West. It only comes into focus when something disastrous happens, like parts of the Civil War, like the invasion of 2006 or the assassination of Rafi Hariri. And then everybody says to you, oh my God, it's so complicated, what's going on there? And then the crisis stops and Lebanon disappears from the map. And I think, first of all, Lebanon is complicated as a country because it's still perhaps the only place left in the Middle East where you have this really complex matrix of different communities living together.
Yeah.
But it's also terribly important because I use this phrase, Lebanon is the piano on which the whole Middle East plays its tunes.
Yeah.
So if you know about Lebanon, if you have access to Lebanon, it's an accessible place. You can talk to people here. It's a free country as far as conversation goes.
Of course.
You have lots of expertise here.
Yeah.
You get the buzz, you get the feel of the Arab world in Lebanon and in Beirut. So it's important from that point of view that we keep access to Beirut, that people know about Lebanon, because if they find out about Lebanon, they don't only find out about Lebanon, but they find out about the wider Middle East.
Yeah.
All the reverberations come here.
Yeah.
And therefore, I think, it's a place that needs to be explained in a relatively, I hope my book is a relatively simple but not simplistic account in a series of vignettes of what Lebanon is about, how the Lebanese arrived where they are today in different ways, Christians, Muslims, Sunni, Shia, all the rest.
And that's what's nice about your book, Mr. Llewellyn, it's that you are not only talking about the political views or the political history, you are also talking about the history of Lebanese and Lebanon, and this is what makes also the book really valued by everybody. And like you previously told me, the book you did it in English about Lebanon's history and political history, especially for not only foreigners, also for Lebanese that was born and who were raised in other countries.
Yes, it occurred to me when I started doing the book, and my publishers, of course, were anxious, to do the book, but that we were obviously thinking of an English-speaking audience, say in Britain, in the United States, in Canada, wherever. But then it occurred to me that there's a much wider audience, that there are maybe millions of Lebanese, Arab-descended people whose first language now is English, who may not even speak Arabic anymore, who live in Canada, the United States, Australia, New Zealand, Europe, all over the place. And these people are interested in their home country, but probably have a very limited idea. Their parents or their grandparents will have told them about a specific village, where they come from, a specific aspect. But they won't have the wider picture. And these people are probably, they don't have the time to wade through massive histories, which are very worthy, but people aren't going to open them. Long books and long, weighty, complicated. So I'm hoping that this is like a meze with a digestible meze, looking at different aspects of Lebanon.
A little bit of everything.
That's right. My idea, I mean, the publisher's idea, actually, but I think it's a good idea, was to sort of take a specific Lebanese fact, a place, a person, a village, a battle, a massacre, the Ain Romani bus, if you know what I mean.
Yes, from where everything began.
Where everything began, exactly. And then sort of stand there in that place and look back. How did this thing happen? How did the Lebanese arrive where they arrive today? And in parts of the book, I go back, to the beginning of Lebanon, the mountain. Why? The mountain is the beginning of Lebanon. That's why Lebanon is Lebanon, because of the mountain. Why did people go to the mountain? And you have to go back to the 4th century. Christians escaping other Christians to find refuge. And that's the story of the mountain, is refuge, is hiding from the various power currents that have swept across this region. So this was the idea, to sort of take specifics. It's not comprehensive. I've left lots of people out, I'm afraid. But I've tried to range right across.
The most important things, I think. Where did you have all these information? You have records, of course, references, books also, and you did interviews to priests and I don't know, soldiers. How did you communicate with all these people, and how long did this book take you to finish?
Well, the book took me 5 years, because obviously there was a lot of research I could do in London. I had a lot up here because I've been coming to Lebanon. I lived in Lebanon. I've been coming every year practically since 1974. London's quite a Middle Eastern center, but I thought it was important that this book, 90% should be the voice of the Lebanese. So this book is mainly Lebanese people, some important, some not so important, speaking about their experiences and showing me around. It's about the Lebanese, and therefore it's the Lebanese, mostly, some Palestinians, of course, because they're important in this country.
Of course.
And 1 or 2 foreigners, but basically it's the Lebanese talking about the Lebanese and their experience. And the wonderful thing about the Lebanese is that they do talk very frankly. I mean, maybe not always telling you exactly the truth, but it doesn't matter. That's your problem. But I mean, people...
They try to tell you something that may be true.
People talk to you, and they're very